section is all about Gua Sha tool selection. I will teach you how to select the appropriate material as well as the appropriate shape for Gua Sha tools. When we first talked about Gua Sha in the history section, Gua Sha tools were originally made of stone or animal horns or bones. And these still are pretty much around today. You can find easily this is a type of ox horn. You could type this is yak bone. There's also ceramic spoons. And all of these are good and fine choices, but I just want to clarify these a little bit more. So this is a piece of horn. This is ox horn, and this is very traditional choice. And I advise to not select this because the edge of the horn is very prone to cracking and getting these little fissures. That makes it difficult to clean, and you also don't want to scrape the skin and cause damage to your client's tissue. So leave the horn off to the side, unless, of course, this is a piece of polished horn. It's very smooth, it's very shiny, it has this nice heart shape to it, the edges are clean, and this does not have any fissures in it. So polished horn is definitely a good choice. The same goes for bone. So this is a piece of yak bone, and it's very polished, it's very smooth, it has a nice shape to it, it conforms well to the shape of the body. When it comes to selecting bone, there are thicker pieces of bone like this, and this is an example of a very thin piece of bone. And I recommend going with the thicker piece of bone, especially when you're first starting Gua Sha. This is going to be a lot more comfortable for your client. The thinner piece is more prone to breakage, chipping, and this can sometimes feel like a little bit too much pressure on your client. So go with the thicker piece of polished bone. In terms of shape, I highly recommend staying away from any tool that has teeth or ridges on it. And instead you want to select a tool that has, a nice heart shape to it. Again, this goes with the contours of the body. This doesn't. And more importantly, these teeth and these ridges really interrupt the ability of Gua Sha to do its job. When we talked about the fundamental physiological principles of Gua Sha, we learned that Gua Sha presses into the fascia in order to get the collagen strands to line up appropriately. And by having teeth or ridges or anything that looks like a comb is not going to induce that same response of the collagen synthesis in the body. So stay away from this. This is not going to be appropriate for Gua Sha. When it comes to ceramic soup spoons, these are kind of a gimmick. I see these on social media a lot, where someone says, watch me do Gua Sha with a utensil from my silverware drawer. But really, these are just very prone to chipping, cracking, breaking. They can't be cleaned very easily. So stay away from these. Eat your soup out of the soup spoon and leave the Gua Sha for the actual Gua Sha tools. Gemstones are a beautiful choice for facial Gua Sha. I love a gemstone for facial Gua Sha, but not for body Gua Sha. The reason being is that a gemstone makes it very unlikely that you're going to raise or bring up Sha. And that's desirable when we're doing facial Gua Sha because we don't want Sha on the face. But when it comes to body Gua Sha, remembering that Sha is one of the physiological tenets of Gua Sha, you need to raise the Sha. And with this style of tool, it's just very unlikely that that's going to happen. I really like metal tools for body Gua Sha. These have a nice weight to them. They're not too thin, not too thick. They have a nice heart shape, so they can definitely conform to the contours of the body. These are easy to bring up Sha, so definitely metal Gua Sha tools with this nice smooth shape make it very easy to perform body Gua Sha. When you're first learning how to perform Gua Sha, it's going to be easier to use a larger tool. So, pick a medium to large size tool, and then as you become more accustomed to the process, it'll be easier for you to perform Gua Sha using a smaller tool. When you're selecting your Gua Sha tool, never use a glass Gua Sha tool. They might be advertised as a beautiful piece of opalescent glass. I've seen that advertised, and you just want to steer clear of that. Glass has too much risk of breaking and injuring the client. So always stay away from glass. Stay away from things like lids of jars. I've also seen that on social media. So, leave the pickle jar lid on the jar of pickles. Don't use that for gua sha. Choose instead a nice solid tool, a piece of metal, a piece of polished horn, or a piece of polished bone. Stick with a U shape or heart shape, even an S shape. Know that when you first start out doing gua sha, the smaller the tool is going to be more difficult for you to hold and handle. So you might want to start off with, a sort of a medium-sized tool like this. And I like to have plenty of sizes and shapes on hand because, clients are different sizes and shapes. So you want to be able to adapt to your client appropriately. Let's talk about how to clean and care for your gua sha tools. After you're finished with the treatment, take your gua sha tools and wash them just with soap and water, and this will remove the gross debris as well as any oil that's remaining on the tool. Now you must disinfect and sanitize your tools because you're sharing tools among clients, so it's very important that you do this step. I recommend that you use a hospital-grade disinfectant, something like a Cavicide or a PDI Santa cloth. And you take the cloth and you just wipe the tool down and let it air dry. You definitely don't want to use bleach, as this will damage your gua sha tool. You also don't want to soak your tool for an extended period of time because this will also damage your tool. Heat will also damage any gua sha tool, so stay away from heat. You can use a UV light after you're done with this disinfection process. Just make sure that there's no heat in that light. A note about Clorox wipes. Clorox wipes definitely should not be used to sanitize your gua sha tools. It says right there in the box that it only kills 99% of the germs, so what about that other 1%? This is a shared tool, so you really want to make sure that you're providing the highest level of sanitation for yourself as well as your clients. So no on the Clorox wipes. As a final note for gua sha safety and cleanliness, make sure that you do wear gloves on both hands while you're doing the treatment, as well as use gloves while you're cleaning your tools. You want to inspect your tools frequently for chips, for cracks, for anything that might degrade the integrity of the edge of your tool. If you start to see your chip or crack, it's time to just retire that tool. And for this reason, I recommend it's very important to keep several tools on hand. That way you're always prepared for a treatment. Just know that tools are very fragile and they will easily break if they're mishandled. So take really good care of your tools and store them appropriately after each treatment.